Every week, we bring some new deals and transactions from the world of entertainment. This week is no different. Kunal, we have some exciting power pack deals which are shaking the very foundations of advertising, experiential, and immersive content consumption. This is going to be an exciting episode.
Yeah, we've packed a whole lot. There's Tinder involved, TikTok in there, Sony, Disney. Can't wait to get started.
Those names I will always raise an eyebrow everywhere you go, but
Yes.
we have some exciting deals. Let's start off with this very exciting deal which involves immersive content consumption.
Yeah, Cosm. I mean, Sony, $100 million investment. Now they're picking up a Series E, one of the lead investor. Other, we were looking at Cosm, very interesting group. They have these three locations. What do they do?
So they have a host of solutions. So the three locations is one aspect of it, but they also have a host of other solutions where they install these massive LED screens or projections or domes. They have different ways to consume content, but they make the content consumption experiential, immersive, exciting. You are almost in the moment, in the game. It's really in your face in terms of its overall surround of experience. These are very high resolution LED screens,
Yeah,
12K
wow.
LED screens.
Yeah, when I was in LA, I saw that they had an event, the FIFA event was going on, and a lot of people. So it's like a stadium. You sit in there, you're
That's right.
experiencing the whole stadium feel, and then you have this massive,
Yeah,
dome style screen that you experience the matches.
that's right. And it's very high quality. It's almost like a IMAX quality, but it's much up close and much more immersive from that perspective.
Yeah. What is Sony doing? So now they've invested. So clearly they want to bring Spider-Man to do this experience.
So look, Sony can unleash so much of content that is just very, very exciting from a consumption perspective in this sort of an immersive setting. I think that seems like the key objective here. I think the opportunity was also that there was a 1948 ruling in the United States where a host of these screens could not be owned by studios.
Oh,
Now
interesting.
that got vacated in 2020. That law, that rule got vacated in 2020.
Oh, wow.
And Sony seems to be like just ahead in the race to actually jump at the opportunity to own, to have a piece of the action as far as screens is concerned.
Wow.
Like prior to 2020, they wouldn't have been able to pull this
They
off.
won't be able to pull this off. Wow. So I mean, I could now just imagine what type of titles, content that it'll come. Again, betting big looks like beyond just investments. Mr. Ahuja is also going to be on the board of directors.
That's right. So Ravi Ahuja, who's the Sony Pictures chairman and CEO, he will join the board of Cosm, the board of directors. Look, this is a high stakes game. It is I mean, if you just look at, just the US market for premium theatrical and experiential screens, that is somewhere
Yeah.
around $5 billion sort of market opportunity.
Wow. The way I was able to see this is right. Large studios are getting into the distribution space. I mean, look at Fox. Last time we talked about investing in Roku, right? So they're trying to sort of come to the last mile of
That's
how
right.
the
That's right.
content is distributed. And here we go with
It's funny you should mention Roku. One of the things that this deal also kind of, reminded me of was the Netflix house deal. Because that's
True.
also kind of like an experiential sort of a, you sort of kind of go into a zone with games and meals and dinner and, the whole experience and arcades and so on. So this
Yeah.
kind of it's, different, of course, but the core objective is to connect with the audiences and to have a sort of content connection
Yeah.
and an immersive experience at that.
Much elevated. Yeah. Amazing. We have now this is an interesting one, Atul. You've got a completely non. Most of these are non-film TV players. You got Tinder involved. There is an IP involved. There's TikTok in there. There's ITV Studios. I mean, I didn't imagine all of these names will come together in one deal.
It's fascinating. I think it's the announcement of TikTok really joining in. the whole sort of scripted content, also, much more sort of traditional content, but actually delivered into a very digital audience or a digital first audience. It's also stitched up as an exciting integration between what is a feature. So the double date feature that exists on Tinder that allows for groups to actually sort of, come
Match.
together and interact. So that's the feature that they've brought out as Double Date Island, which is actually the show. So
Wow.
it's a nice, clever integration. It kind of, celebrates one of their key core features, which is the double date feature. The other, thing that I'm also struck by was that, I recently interviewed the chief content executive at ITV Studios, Julie Meldal Johnson. She actually extensively spoke about Studio 55 and Zoo 55, right? As, a digital first studio and distribution network. And the fact that they actually landed this very exciting deal with Tinder that actually is now going on to TikTok, I think it's just fascinating.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Big move. And it's just on TikTok. It's not going to show up anywhere else. And produced by ITV Studios, Studio 55. Yeah,
That's right.
fascinating.
And
Different
then
ground
Crouchhead
we're breaking.
Studios is the other partner. They're kind of in the production partner in this one.
Right.
So this is, I think, look, we've obviously seen, new platforms enter the streaming space. There has been rumors about TikTok coming in.
Yeah.
Are they going to do vertical? Are they going to do, landscape? Are they targeting smart TVs? There's just so much of rumor and murmurs and buzz around the industry for the last few years. I think this one, I'm kind of hoping that this is actually
Yeah.
one of many moves that we may see.
And Tinder needed cultural relevance, and TikTok just needed premium brand content
That's
rather
right.
than just user generated. So, massive move, breaking new grounds.
Yep.
Now, this was a little more technical, Atul. We have Disney involved in trying to avoid ad fatigue. What is this deal about?
So look, what this is that Disney and Omnicom have come together. Disney is actually going to be allowing a specific creative ID tag that will help the agency, in this case Omnicom, to actually identify how many times that ad is being played out in a particular household. And the key aspect here is that Omnicom already has that same arrangement with NBC Universal and Paramount. So now, irrespective of where Omnicom places those ads, Omnicom is one of the top agencies, as you know, in the world of advertising. They have some of the top tier advertisers as their clients, very, very large brands. So
Yeah.
this is a big deal. It's a big deal, from the US context or even from a Europe and LATAM context. This is a big deal. So the big announcement is that with this Disney deal, and Disney has a lion's share as far as the advertising sort of pie is concerned, the ad pie is concerned in the US. Now Omnicom will be able to actually make sense of, ads, whether they are on Paramount or NBC Universal or Disney. They'll be able to figure out which households are actually getting exposed to the same ads. And then, they don't want ad fatigue to set in. So they will be able to sort of, mix up those ads with other variants of the same ad or maybe shorter versions of those ads so that the ad fatigue doesn't set up in those households that Omnicom is targeting on behalf of its advertisers. So it's a fairly interesting deal. There's obviously a fair amount of tech involved, advertising tech involved.
Yeah, amazing. And then I think now Disney will be able to go back to advertiser and say, "Hey, look at this. Your ads would be effectively played. Maybe you should give us a little more premium than what you were giving us before."
Look, I mean, the US market is one of the largest as far as, ad dollars is concerned. And, you know, if you look at just the sheer size of Disney, if you combine the linear, Disney Plus, Hulu, right? Disney has, just nearly 11% share of audiences within the US. So there's a big deal. The whole category is just south of 40 billion, the advertising TAM. So this is a big deal from that perspective.
Fantastic. We talked about Sony. We talked about $100 million investment. We talked about Tinder's IP. We talked about TikTok coming into this space. And then a very exciting one, Disney really opening up and giving their data control for reducing ad fatigue.
That's right. That's right. And look, I mean, the segments that you just described, are just the where the industry is headed, right? Digital. Yes, we've been talking about, digital content streaming, and then of course this whole revolution with YouTube. Now, hopefully, joining that particular bandwagon is TikTok. The advertise the piece. We've been actually sort of speculating that there's going to
We've
be an
been,
explosion of activity in
yes,
ad tech. We have been seeing lots of such moves, right? We can bet our last dollar that even the Roku part is actually going to sort of dramatically keep altering the ad tech innovations, right? And then of course the immersive content play is something that we had talked about, when we saw Netflix House, when we saw some of the other moves, and what Sony has done with their investment of 100 million. By the way, that investment that we covered earlier in the program, that has pushed Cosm beyond $1 billion valuation, right? So
oh wow,
it's a Series C investment. So again, deals are happening, big deals are happening, and these moves are new moves in a very very exciting sector in new areas.
fantastic. Atul, before we wrap up, we are capturing all of these exciting set of intelligence, right? For a lot of our viewers on YouTube, where can they get their own information?
Yeah, so look, at Vitrina, one of the things that we do is that we track deals and transactions. We are all about the business of entertainment. We track where the dollars are moving and how. The dollars that come in, we care about the three aspects of the dollars, right? What content is getting financed? That content, that finance content, how are they spending that money to get the content out of the door? And third is who's buying that content, right? So, essentially raising cash or raising money, then spending money to make the show or make the feature, and then making money, which is the really monetization of content. We are sort of 24 by 7, 365 days a year tracking deals and transactions. And a lot of those deals and transactions are part of our system. So for folks who are interested in tracking, the top investors in entertainment, the top production houses, the top studios, the top distributors, the top streamers, the top buyers who are licensing content.
Yeah.
If that really gets you goosebumps and that really triggers you and fires you up, then you should actually consider becoming a member at Vitrina. Again, we cover these deals, which is like a tiny sliver of some really exciting deals that we curate and we cherry pick. But there are thousands and thousands of transactions that can be actually studied and analyzed as part of the Vitrina system.
So basically, go to Vitrina.ai, and then few weeks ago, Atul, we launched a new member, Vicky. What is she up to?
So Vicky is our virtual agent. Vicky. So all of the deals that we track, not just who the players are, but why did this deal happen? What are the contours of the deals and transactions, right? All of that information is fed into our own AI. So this is our own proprietary AI called VIQI, VIQI. And Vicky is now suddenly all knowledgeable. So you can actually ask Vicky hardcore, hard-nosed business questions. Saying, hey, Vicky, tell me, which entertainment company should I partner with in the Nordics or in Brazil, right? For this movie that I want to create or this content that I want to sell, right? So you ask Vicky those questions, and Vicky will actually answer, with the best and the most recent deals and transactions that she's knowledgeable now of. And she'll say, oh, go to these 5 companies. These are the first 5 companies you should attack and that you should target. So VIQI AI, again, for folks who are wanting to get ahead in terms of their global sort of partnerships and their global networks in the entertainment sector, Vicky is like a must-have, assistant, agent, analyst on your side. She's all three, by the way. She's your Hollywood agent, she's your analyst, and she's your assistant, and she can play each of those roles at different points in time. But you need her on your side largely because she's just so knowledgeable about what the industry is going through on a daily basis. Folks should check out Vic.
Perfect. You can go to vitrina.ai/VIQI or more details right at the bottom. Thank you all for joining.
Fantastic.